This week, Western leaders are gathering in Rome for one of the most important events of the year for Ukraine, the Ukraine Recovery Conference 2025. The July 10th and 11th event, hosted by Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, brings together political leaders, international organizations, financial institutions, business executives, and humanitarian groups to answer a critical question. How do you rebuild a country while it's still at war? This conference, often called the URC, is part of an annual series that began in 2022. The first was held in Lugano, then London in 2023, and Berlin in 2024. Each year, the goal remains the same: to mobilize international support for Ukraine's reconstruction and to assess the economic, political, and security challenges the country faces because of Russia's full-scale invasion. This year, the stakes are higher than ever. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is expected to attend alongside European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, and Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk. The United States will be represented by Keith Kellogg, Donald Trump's envoy to Ukraine. While it's unclear if other high-level officials from the Trump administration will join him, Kellogg's presence alone signals continued American engagement at a moment of growing uncertainty. Right now, the U.S. stance on Ukraine is anything but settled. Just days before the conference, the Pentagon paused the delivery of some of Ukraine's most critical military supplies. Doug Klain, a policy analyst at Razom, a Washington-based humanitarian organization, called the situation an absolute mess in an interview with Kyiv Post. He said the U.S. decision to pause aid creates, quote, real pressure on the U.S. to bring something meaningful to the table. And while the URC hasn't always made headlines, Klain says this year is different. There's a serious incentive for the Trump administration to get this right and actually commit to helping Ukraine rather than surrender to Putin, he said. That urgency is echoed by Shelby Magid, deputy director at the Atlantic Council's Eurasia Center. She told Kyiv Post, while the fighting sadly still continues in Ukraine and diplomatic efforts to end Russia's war seem stalled, major efforts remain underway for work on Ukraine's recovery and reconstruction. According to Magid, the URC is not just symbolic, it's essential. The URC is an important forum to take stock of these initiatives and spur further commitments to not only assist in building a secure and sustainable future for Ukraine, but to make it mutually beneficial for all partners involved, she said. One example she points to is Zelensky's recent announcement of U.S.-Ukraine joint drone production, a move that brings both economic and military benefits to both countries. The Trump administration has also pushed forward a minerals deal with Ukraine and announced a joint investment fund for Ukraine's reconstruction. Magid said these moves signal a long-term strategy from Washington. Trump's Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent described the minerals deal as a message to Moscow, saying it signals clearly to Russia that the Trump administration is committed to a peace process centered on a free, sovereign, and prosperous Ukraine over the long term. But for many experts, showing up at this conference isn't enough. The U.S. needs to lead, because if it doesn't, others will. Doug Klain explained it like this: we've always known that the private sector and civil society would play a leading role in Ukraine's recovery. But without continued U.S. leadership today, the Russians will have a greater chance to stop that recovery from happening. Razom will be hosting side events at the URC to bring together officials from Ukraine, Europe, and the U.S. to push forward new recovery efforts. One event will focus specifically on defense investment. There really are significant benefits to enabling Ukrainians to guarantee their own security, Klain said. We're seeing other countries like Denmark get in on the ground floor by investing now. If Americans don't want to be left behind, it's worth it for the U.S. to start building with and learning from Ukraine. Otherwise, we won't be ready for the wars of tomorrow. For Ukraine, this conference isn't a plea for charity. It's a push for long-term investment to guarantee the nation's survival and strength. Even as the war continues, it's about rebuilding cities and industries, yes, but it's also about attracting investment and ensuring that Ukraine emerges from this war stronger, more sovereign, and more secure. As Shelby Magid put it, sustained high-level engagement on Ukraine's recovery is critical for both Ukraine's success and American economic and security interests.